Discovering Áváhé, Gesoria. In our own past, legends and myths have always played a central role. For many, they still do in the present. In addition to being interesting stories to tell around the campfire, legends also served as a makeshift in the past, for example, when there was not much information available about a faraway land or natural phenomenon, and so people helped themselves with stories. Often enough, such stories were marked by prejudice or were simply false. A good example of this is the Terra Australis. This was the name of a continent that scholars in the Middle Ages believed was located in the southern hemisphere, supposedly balancing the land masses in the northern hemisphere. Even though the navigator James Cook proved that Terra Australis, with its alleged mythical creatures and alien peoples, did not exist, it was for a long time in the minds of many a mysterious place that must have been wondrous and terrifying in equal measure. One such place in Áváhé we will have a look at in this video. Gesoria is a great mystery for almost all outsiders in the present. It is known to lie on the southwestern flank of the Aerznian Imperium, close to the homeland of the free riverine peoples. Beyond that, however, the citizens of Aerznia know practically nothing about this part of their neighborhood. However, this does not stop them from wanting to conquer it again and again, as we will see. Fortunately, we are better informed than the average Aerznian denizen. The Áváhé wiki entry on Gesoria lets us know that large parts of the region known as Tamarin, including the island of Dýrrách, are under the influence of Gesoria, that is, a substantial part of the so-called Western Expanse. The climate in the fragmented country ranges from humid continental in the north to Mediterranean in the south. The northernmost islands, however, even consist of deserts, while the already mentioned island of Dýrrách exhibits several climatic zones between humid subtropical and subarctic continental. Notable regions in Gesoria, besides Dýrrách, are Aneth, Ilusha, Fevero, Kiovin, Miomor, and Sakis. These regions are not only culturally relevant, but also play a political role, as Gesoria is basically federally structured. At the same time, it is a kind of unitary state in disguise, as the major regions are divided into local governmental districts, which are quite autonomous. However, the central government in the capital, Templar, elected by a federal council, has also important powers, such as foreign policy. This foreign policy, in turn, is traditionally isolationist and anti-Aerznian. For hundreds of years, Gesoria has resisted the expansionist efforts of its larger neighbor and has seen other neighboring states become vassals of the Imperium. The country thus maintains an extensive network of spies and contacts for its own security. This makes Gesorian politics a muddy affair. In isolation, Gesoria developed a diverse culture which has absorbed relatively few outside influences and is now, for many, a symbol of strangeness and mystery. Before we move on to the culture, or rather the cultures of Gesoria, let's take a look at another peculiarity of this country, and that is the orders. Religious and non-religious orders play a central and firmly anchored role in everyday life in Gesoria. Numerous tasks of public and non-public interest are carried out by these supranational organizations, from espionage to welfare and education. For example, the Conclave of the Owls is charged with the gathering and preservation of knowledge in general, while the Order of Light Carriers helps the poor and homeless of the country. Particularly outstanding orders, though, are the Order of the Sighted Blinds, a group of factually blind people who, nevertheless, act as magical seers and advisors, and the Conclave of the Guardians, a group of border guards who have the ability to melt their minds with those of animals. As you have probably guessed by now, magic and mysticism play an important role in Gesoria, as opposed to most of the rest of Áváhé. However, in Gesoria, the oddities don't stop with the sighted blind or magically controlling animals. In many places in Gesoria, there are apparitions, public rituals, or recurring events that make sense only to the initiated. Such occurrences, depending on the region and the occasion, have a high status and are also part of the often ritualized social life. Occasionally, they are also centrally organized or perform relevant tasks. Since the Gesorians inherited the art of bell casting from the Old Empire, bells often play a role in various traditions as well, but even beyond that, there are many local conspicuous features. One example of that would be the dragon statues with lanterns in their mouths, which serve as lighthouses in the Strait of Tamarin, around which the Gesorian islands are grouped. They were probably made in the image of a dragon that once took on the task of guiding ships through dangerous waters. So, if you find yourself in a spontaneous march across the marketplace in the middle of the day in Gesoria, you really shouldn't be surprised. This also leads us to the, maybe, most outstanding of all Gesorian characteristics. Not only do the Gesorians preserve statues of dragons in the present day, but dragons also make up a notable part of the country's population, along with some Kede, old ones, which is already remarkable for a modern country with a strong human population, and even wolves of the north. Hence, it is also not surprising that magic is being used extensively in practically all social classes. If you watched our video on the Imperii Draconi, the ancient empire whose fall was responsible for large parts of Áváhé's current political landscape, you might find it strange that one country can have such a diverse population so long after the old philosophies of interspecies cooperation and humanitarianism have vanished in the depths of history. Well, just like with most countries, Gesoria's current state is best understood through understanding its history. Above all, it should be noted that Gesoria considers itself more or less to be a kind of successor to the Imperii Draconi. In fact, there are some parallels between the two realms. For example, citizens enjoy basic freedoms and rights, men and women are equal, and the individual is considered inviolable. However, compared to Quanar, the country today has little in common culturally with the Old Empire. After the Scarlet Night and the constant instability of the Aerznian region during the Dark Ages, Gesoria quickly developed into a refuge for the magically gifted, the elderly, and people who had left Aerznia. This is also the reason for the internal heterogeneity of the country. Old ones, dragons, politically persecuted people, and all those who feared for their lives in this daring time would soon turn on the rather depopulated, unimportant part of the Old Empire. The violence had not yet reached. The sudden influx in population did lead to some internal fighting, but eventually the different peoples managed to overcome their differences and establish a new order. Even the time calculation in Gesoria functions according to the principle before and after the end of the Old Empire. The unification of Gesoria then was quite peaceful. The major regions of Tamarin, Dýrrách, Templar, and Anath met under the leadership of 5 individuals in Templar. These are often referred to as the founders of modern Gesoria. However, not much is known about them, apart from numerous legends. What is certain is that they brought together the different peoples of Gesoria and worked out the constitution of the country, which was to last for over 1,000 years. Allegedly, the group consisted of 2 Kedai, one of them an Akradai, a dragon, a human, and an old one. Apart from its remarkable history, there is one additional detail about Gesoria I would like to mention here, and that is the island of Dýrrách, as it is considered a forbidden land in Gesoria. All districts of the country have the explicit duty to deny access to Dýrrách to strangers or citizens alike, and only 2 cities exist on the easternmost spur of the land. These cities again mostly serve to facilitate maritime navigation and otherwise function as bastions. Since when Dýrrách has been considered a forbidden land, and why is not exactly clear, making a large part of the country a mystery even to its own population. The sealing off of the island was, however, gradual, and only became more rigid over time. It is conceivable that Dýrrách, which ought to hold significant cultural value as the birthplace of the old empire, became unsafe due to volcanic activity, and access was therefore restricted. Again, legends and stories abound in the face of missing facts, and we should probably expect nothing different from this strange country in the southwest, should we?